this meeting will be recorded. I will use a timer that will signal when you're live 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, Ann Carroll, Upper River Road. I really just came for a couple quick things, basically to say thank you. I said this to a couple of you last year, so I'm a year late, but I wanted to officially formally thank Dr. Blake, the high school leadership team, all of you for the cell phone policy that you passed. I can't imagine how much work that was. I know how much thought went into it. I know when you did it, from what I read in the Globe, you're a leader in that regard, and now the state is thinking about implementing it statewide. So you had the courage and foresight to act early, and I think it really is making a difference, and I'm very grateful. The second point is in the superintendent newsletter that you sent out on September 5th, you talked about the new feature about educational books, and you talked about the book that you had read this summer, and you summarized some of the considerations about the anxious generation for those that didn't read it. um, Children getting unfettered access to things that are far beyond their ability to understand, the ability of children and adolescents to download apps and hide them from their parents is commonplace. Tech companies developing these apps target your children. And you had asked, what do you think? Do you see this happening? And my answer is yes. And I'm very concerned. And thank you again for engaging in this topic. And I just wanted to ask, I think there should be an ongoing dialogue about this, and I, would love to see, further discussion. But basically, more than anything, I wanted to say thank you. And, I'm gonna get back to curriculum night now.
Thank you, Ann.
Good evening. My name is Christina Elder, and I live at 14 Liberty Street. My daughter is a first grader at Winthrop School. I understand that I cannot speak about staff personnel actions, and that it is not that you cannot speak about staff personnel actions, and that it is not the responsibility of the Ipswich School Committee to engage in school personnel issues. However, it is your responsibility to assess decisions made by the superintendent and his capacity to do what is best for our children. I am deeply concerned about the superintendent's decision to remove the school nurse, John Stafford, from the Winthrop School, as he is critical to children's welfare. I am concerned that this decision seems to have been made unilaterally without input from the school committee or the principal or other faculty members or parents in the community. Moreover, this decision seems to be based on the suggestions of individuals who either do not live in Ipswich, who are at a minimum do not have children attending Winthrop School, and hold no elected, appointed, or hired position in the town. I'm concerned that this decision violates protected speech laws, as it purports to be based on a single online message posted by Mr. Stafford in a forum that is unrelated to his job, the school, or the students. I'm dismayed by the superintendent's opaqueness with the Winthrop community regarding this decision and the school's plan going forward. The email that the superintendent sent to Winthrop parents on September 13th did not address who was placed on leave, why, or most importantly, whether there would be a substitute for that employee. Only after dozens of emails from parents, emailed to the school committee, and a parents' discussion yesterday evening at curriculum night, did Superintendent Blake send a follow-up email today, and it still did not address whether a substitute nurse has been put in place. Most importantly, this decision has in only 1 week seriously negatively impacted the students from preschoolers to fifth graders. Already, I have heard from a parent who broke down in tears on Monday trying to explain her child's complex medical needs to the nurse substitute. I have heard from a parent who told me that she had to put her child's teacher in charge of that child's chronic illness because the nurse substitute changes every day. The teachers don't even know the name of the nurse substitute or who to contact in case of an emergency. Mr. Stafford is a light in the Winthrop community. He's professional, caring, and a dedicated healthcare practitioner who takes the time to get to know every Winthrop student and their needs. We have seen this reflected in the dozens of heartfelt comments that Ipswich residents have left on our petition, which has garnered over 600 signatures at this point. I have them all here. 2 comments even said that Mr. Stafford saved the commenters' lives. I implore you to look into this decision by the superintendent, as it has immediately negatively impacted Winthrop students and families and does not have the best interests of students at heart. The superintendent's job is to act in the best interests of the students, and I believe he has failed here and should reinstate Mr. Stafford as Winthrop school nurse effective immediately, as the students need and deserve his expertise and dedication. Thank you. I have
Thank you.
signatures here.
I've been doing a lot of walking lately, thinking about what I want to say to you today. Melanie Conant, 110 Argilla Road. Yeah. So I wrote a letter to you a few days ago, and subsequent to that letter I wrote, there's been additional things that have happened that have made me want to walk more and think about this more. But I wanted to read it again because I thought there was a lot of what I wrote that I still want to convey to you. So I thought maybe reading it in person might make me feel better. I am writing to share my thoughts on the suspension of John, our Winthrop school nurse. Over the past several days, I have had a wide range of emotions: disbelief, anger, self righteousness, and more recently, compassion. We live in a divided time. The internet, social media, and even our public figures often amplify and exacerbate the divisions that exist, leaving us more entrenched on opposite sides. If you look online, you'll find endless arguments and evidence for every perspectives. But as I've taken long walks to reflect, I found myself returning to a more important question: who are we as a community, and who do we want to be to our children? I'm a parent of a 9-year-old boy in the beginnings of adolescence. Parenting in this time is not easy. I try to teach thoughtfulness, kindness, compassion, and acceptance. As I sat with these lessons that I try to teach, my thinking about John became very clear. John is not just our school nurse, he is our friend, our neighbor, and one of my child's most ardent caretakers. Every experience I have had with him has been positive. He has shown compassion, thoughtfulness, and genuine care for my son. I invite all of us to remember who he is to us personally, rather than letting social media or the pressures of society dictate what we should think. We are living in a moment where we can choose to allow divisiveness to pull us apart, or we can choose humanity to pull us together. I want all our community to be one that chooses care of our friend John over judgment, understanding over division. I hope we can move past our differences and come together stronger, not more fractured. For our children, for one another, and for the future, let us be a community that reaches out with empathy, seeks understanding, and works towards humanity and healing. So I just, in the passing of things that have happened over the last few days, I still think these are really important things to think about and how we treat each other and even moving forward. So.
Thank you.
My name is Ingrid Miles. I live at 18 Poplar Street. I've been a resident of Ipswich for over 43 years. I'm not here to choose sides. Humanity never takes a side. But more importantly, through you, the chair, Ms. Freeman, I would like to ask the question of the superintendent for clarification as to what is the process involved for putting anyone on administrative leave. I think that would be very helpful, and whether or not that process was adhered to would also be helpful for many people. I have been stopped on the street by so many people asking me, what do you know? I don't have any children in the school. However, I am chair of the Ipswich Education Foundation, and we work very, very hard to support the schools, and we would like to continue to do that. So I'm here to represent population that's not here this evening to ask those questions.
Thank you.
My name's Courtney Denoncourt. I live at 20 Maple. My nephew was shot in the Minneapolis school shooting. Dr. Blake, I'd written to you with concern for our children's safety in the school. You didn't write me back. You didn't offer condolences to my family. And most importantly, you didn't reassure me that our children are safe. Your next message, first message, came out to us after the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the school shooting of Colorado. Nothing again about how we're keeping our children safe and what we can do to come together as a community to ensure that that happens. Again, I wrote to you, please reach out, please be a leader. Please tell everybody to calm down, be kind, and come together. Again, where's our leader? I take care of people after neurosurgery, after they have a stroke, after they've had back surgery, after they've had a TBI. Do you think I'm coming on that floor and asking their religion, their opinion on gun violence? No. I go out there and I take care of these people because that's my job. And I signed on to do this because I love to do what I do. All of us healthcare workers come together and we take care of people and we don't ask questions because that's what we do. All of you here today, that is your job. We're losing the plot. These are children. You need to start speaking up and be leaders for them. We need you desperately right now. We cannot have another situation like this happen. And on the side, adjacent to this, John was a very important person for a lot of people in this community. The loss of a nurse, the loss of a safe person for these children is impactful. This needs to be heard. And it's falling on deaf ears is what it feels like.
Thank you. David Russell, 9 Prescott Road, and I'll be pretty brief. I'm a retired teacher. I taught in Boston for a long time, and I think it's important that teachers are held to high standards. I've seen things and observed things that, oh boy, that's not right. But I also know that there's none of us want to be judged by our worst moments. And I don't know, Mr. Stafford, kids went there long ago, but everything I hear of him, he's a very good person. And I don't know that this was his worst moment, but I would bet that he now regrets kind of the wording of what he said. I think, all of us, without any qualification, reservation, political assassination, violence is wrong, 100%, 100%. If his wording of what he thought was a private post didn't make that clear, that is a mistake. I don't see how that would rise to the level of something just justifying termination. I mean, I don't pretend to know everything about the situation. I just really can't see that. And I say that as someone who thinks that sometimes, as teachers, we are sometimes let slide a little more than we maybe should. And, it's important that we be held to high standards and, across the board. But we also need to be sensible in, does the punishment fit the crime? And I do also worry that, kind of going on around the country, there is a, something of a witch hunt against people who were opposed to the president. We're in Ipswich. I mean, not in Ipswich. We can't be part. And you can be unconsciously influenced by things that are going on. Should someone lose their Jimmy Kimmel yesterday? I mean, I watched a couple times the passage where he was objected to. It was just jokes that are on ordinary kind of stuff like that is not something that someone should lose their job over. And I can't see how this is a case where a person who's been working very hard, very well, should be sacrificed. I just really don't. That scares me. And yeah, so I'd urge that uh, uh, that that not be considered as an option. I think I don't know the gentleman. I'm sure he's learned from being all of a sudden in the public eye and having what I thought was just something my people I know were going to see scrutinized. And okay, wait a second, I need to be careful. Anything I put online, it's not private. It could be, so be careful about what you say. I expect he's learned, and I hope that he can get back to work soon with the kids that went through. Thank you. University very seriously. As previously communicated, I was recently made aware of certain staff conduct that may conflict with these commitments. In response, immediately launched an investigation, including placement of Mr. Stafford on administrative leave. And we're looking into the matter in order to determine if personnel action is required. At this time, I can't discuss any staff personnel action. Privacy laws. All employees have rights. As any and all personnel decisions must be made in line with applicable laws, regulations, and policies. I understand that's caused a lot of concern in the community. I understand that. And I want to take this opportunity to just address the community.
Announcements and special acknowledgements. School committee will hold a workshop Thursday, October 2nd here in the ensemble room. The next regular school committee meeting will be held on Thursday, October 16th here in the ensemble room. The athletic policy working groups meet Tuesday, September 23rd at 6:30.
The school building committee next.
Are we just not going to say anything to the folks that came out tonight and poured their hearts out to us? Okay. School committee's not going to say anything? Of course we have a nurse. I asked if we have a nurse.
There's been nursing coverage every day.
How would we know that? Is there any sense of how long the investigation is going to last and when it will last?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm here tonight to ask for your permission for our two out-of-state overnight field trips that we hold. It's the same trips we've been going on for a number of years now. The eighth grade to Washington, D.C. Last year we flew to Washington, D.C., and that's the plan again this year. In June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, I believe it is. Not exactly sure on those dates. I know you have the information in front of you, but flying there, it's a 3-day trip, 2 nights, and returning. That was a game changer with the ability to do that last year, as opposed to the long 24 hours on a bus, 12 down and 12 back was very difficult. And then we're very fortunate to have the pain grant system. So every student that wanted to attend the trip was able to. There was about 12 students that didn't want to go away and stayed home and did a number of local trips, State House, and a number of other activities where they're getting a similar experience about civics-based field trip. And then our 6th grade field trip goes to the ecology school. That's been a time-honored tradition. Previously, it was at Ferry Beach. It's a little further down up the river, still on the Saco River, and ecology school at Riverbend Farm in Maine. And that's a 4-day, 3-night trip. And again, through the generous paying grants, we're able to take every single student that wants to attend is able to. The students that do not attend do a number of ecology-based trips here, including Crane Beach, Cedar Rock Gardens in Gloucester, and some other trips as well.
Questions for Mr. Canolfi? Just have the same one for both, like the 10-to-1 chaperone ratio.
Yes, we have, it's all teacher chaperoned. We have all of our 8th grade staff attending. Usually one usually stays back along with maybe a paraprofessional for doing the day trips. The same on the 6th grade side. We have 2 staff members that stay behind. The 6th graders are a little younger. Some of them are not, don't want to go away for that long. So we usually have a few staff members back with those doing the day trips. But I attend both, not fully. I attend one night up at Ferry Beach. Mr. Fitzgerald does more, and then I go to Washington as well with all the students. And our school nurse, Jen Reed, comes with both, and we have coverage here at school for the.
Move to approve the grade 6 ecology school trip 2026. Favor? Abstain?
Washington, 8th grade Washington.
Second that, second again. Favor?
Thank you for your time.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I was asked to do a report on our school rankings. There was a recent article in the Ipswich local news about Ipswich High School falling from 36 to 100. So we kind of dove into the reasons behind that, how it was calculated, and what steps we're taking to reverse that trend. If it is indeed a trend. So, 64 to 100, sorry. Data is based on spring 24 testing. So we've had another testing cycle for AP and for MCAS since this data was collected, which is how the U.S. News and World Report created their rankings. And we'll get more into that in the next slide, how it breaks down. So the U.S. News World Report only looks at AP and our statewide MCAS testing results. Specifically, they look at 30% of it as the college readiness, which is the number of students who are scoring, or the percentage of students who are scoring a 3 or higher, which is a qualifying score according to the College Board, which is a passing grade. 10% is the curriculum breadth, how many seniors took multiple AP tests. 20% is the state proficiency. So what percentage of our students scored in the proficient or meets or exceeds, sorry, I still have the old MCAS language in my head, the meets or exceeds levels on the MCAS test. 20% is assessment performance relative to similar districts. If you remember last spring, we talked about the DART comparison. It DESE identifies statistically, I think it's about 10, 11 schools to which we are similar in terms of our socioeconomics, our diversity, and our size. And we did not do well compared to our like districts in 24. 10% of their score is based on what they think is what we should be doing for our underserved students. That's our Black and Latino students and our socioeconomically challenged students, and how we compared to the all students. So for the state, there was a gap of 8.8%, and our gap was a little bit broader than that. And then, of course, 10% of that was our graduation rate. So that adds up to 100. I was an English teacher. Just want to make sure I was doing math right there. So half of our seniors took at least one AP course. So that helped us for our college readiness. A lot of them did well enough in the test to score 3 or higher, 87% of them. And we had a large number of students completing advanced coursework, which includes upper level science and math courses, lab courses. The state assessment portion was not so great. If you remember from our presentation last spring, we knew that our performance on the spring 24 MCAS was not great. Our meeting and exceeding percentage was 57. In math, it was 61. We know that our achievement gaps in area of need, as I just mentioned, and we are second from the bottom in like districts. The next slide has got the DART comparison, but the data for spring 25 is still embargoed, but I can tell you that our performance was much better in 25. I can't really get into too much detail, but it was significantly better than we did in 24. So here's the DART comparison, where don't be confused, it has Ipswich third from the top. It's just alphabetical. If you look at that column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 and 8 columns over, you'll see that we did not fare as well as the other districts on grade 10 in spring of 24. So just as a comparison, there's a lot of rankings out there. U.S. News and World Report is one. Another one is the Boston Magazine ranking, where we ranked 25th out of 150 high schools, ahead of every other Cal school except for Hamilton Wenham and Manchester Essex. I would also like to include that we were ahead of Winchester High School, which I always thought in my head was like probably a top 10 in the area, but we were ranked higher than they were, or better than they were. So they use a lot of different other factors. They don't just look at AP and MCAS scores. They take into account SAT scores as well. Our graduation rate, not just dropout rate, the class size and student-to-teacher ratio, teacher evaluations. So that's all public information, how the teachers rank. So teachers can be exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. And if your school has a higher percentage of teachers in the exemplary category, then you're going to do better in their algorithm. We choose to make sure that we're looking at the rubrics carefully and making sure that exemplary is something that's rare for teachers and something for them to strive for. So I know for a fact there are other districts that don't have the same philosophy that we do, and they put a lot of teachers in the exemplary range. Could be one of the reasons why they're ranked higher than us. And in college readiness is the rate at which our graduates attend college, whether it's a 2 or 4 year, doesn't matter. Just how many of our students are going to college. They don't have a breakdown of the percentage like the U.S. News and World Report. It's a proprietary algorithm, so they don't share it publicly how they calculate or how each one of these categories is weighted. So next steps, we're going to look at our spring 25 MCAS data, their math, science, and English department heads to see if we can identify any trends in teaching and learning where we can remediate any kind of gaps that we discover. We're going to develop benchmark assessments and use them, of course, to generate data. If you remember, it's been in our school improvement plan for a number of years to have common assessments or interim assessments that yield student data so we can identify trends in learning, so we can remediate those deficiencies, but also identify professional development to help teachers continue to grow as professionals. We're going to create a data review cycle that will have our departments use periodically throughout the year for those interim assessments. We're going to renew our attention to our lowest performing students to narrow that achievement gap that I mentioned. And then we will include appropriate strategies in our next school improvement plan, which we are currently writing for the next 2 years. So knowing that we did those, that the spring 24 data was not great, we took some initial steps already. We wanted to make sure that staff understood how the DESE accountability report works. So we gave them a professional development day. They went to town hall and really dove into the data and the accountability reports to answer their questions. I met with each of the department heads individually last year to go over the data from spring 24. We finally completed our curriculum documents in the UBD format. We shared a list of the lowest performing students with the 8th grade teachers. It's actually a list of students that DESE submits into the Dropbox. It's accessible to all principals. We shared that with staff so they knew they could give extra attention to those kids on the list. And we shared open responses. The actual writing is a place where we can print out or save the file, save the trees. We saved the file and shared it with the English teachers so they can see how the kids wrote, actual open responses. So they can see how they scored. And then we started work on our interim assessments, which we're still working on. So again, those are steps that we started already last year. And I think that's the last slide. So I'll open up to questions.
Can I ask a clarifying question? On the U.S. News World Report page, they're showing the data is from 22-23 school year. You referenced 24. Am I misunderstanding the timing?
My understanding was based on the numbers that they had for us matched up with how we did on the MCAS in 24. So either it's we did the exact same in 22, 23, or they actually used the 24 data. I don't know. It's a good question.
That's for the MCAS. What about for the other categories? The graduation rate, AP scores?
Oh, I don't know. That's
For
for the U.S. News and World Report. They only looked at AP and MCAS. They didn't look at the graduation rate. Yes, was from that year. Yeah.
And then,
Or dropout rate. I think they used dropout rate, not graduation rate.
okay.
Can go back to that
Yeah,
one.
I might have had that.
Yeah. Oh, it was graduation rate.
And then, what's causing the year-over-year change?
It's hard to say. I mean, the truth of the matter is that sometimes there's a grade that does a little bit better on standardized tests than other grades. And I think we just had a grade that made us maybe struggled a little bit on the MCAS. I think we also had some work to do with making sure we are aligned. Our instruction was aligned with the standards during COVID in an effort to try to make sure kids were excited about being in school and kind of bringing the joy back to school. We kind of loosened the reins a little bit on the teachers so they could, not pay attention to the standards so closely. Not to say that we weren't being rigorous, but they didn't have to pay attention to just what was the standards that were being tested. So I think that kind of attention wasn't being paid, and now it will be.
Do you have the scores from the prior year? So if this was 24, do you have the 23 versus the 24 scores for all those categories? I think I saw that in here.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same question. Like, was 24 a blip, or what's
Yeah,
the trend? More like
Part of the reason I
3
asked
to
about
5
the
years.
22, 23, if it was compared to the 21, 22, you're coming off of COVID years, I'd be particularly surprised that it decreased instead of increased.
So actually,
So that's why that
after
was
the
my question about
COVID year,
timing.
because we went to the hybrid model, a lot of other schools in the state were still remote. I think we saw our comparison and our norms, we were much higher. I think we were in like the high 80s for for meets and exceeds. And then we did have a couple years where it went down, but this was, the 24 results were a lot lower than the year before, if I remember correctly. But I think the class that took it last year, they were like rah rah. They were ready to go on MCAS day.
All indications are all
Yeah.
those environment we can't disclose that as much.
Is that data that you could get to us just so we could see the year-over-year comparison?
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
In ELA and math and science, all three.
I think for all 6 of these categories is what we're looking for.
So do you mean I can pull up the U.S. News and World Report for the last several years if you want to see.
I think we're looking for not just the scores themselves, we can do that is to understand where they've decreased, where they've increased, and why.
Okay.
That was the original ask from us.
Okay. I just didn't know if you wanted to know like what this aggregated data looked like, or if you wanted like a breakdown of each one of these separately.
I think it's less the specific data points. I think it's what is the trend. I think the broader concern is how we showed this year, but also Are we on a trend line that we're going to further decrease next year? And outside of the report itself, what does that mean for our students?
I can tell you right now that 25, the data is going to be much, much better. It's not a, it appears to be a blip from 24. We can make that part of that presentation when the time comes. We can look at the trend.
We've also reported on this in the past, so we should have old presentations that,
We
right?
do it every year.
About the AP courses, 87% of AP testers earned a 3 or higher. Can you explain again what, if I missed it, what the 3 is and how high it goes, or how?
It's out of 5, so a 3 is a qualifying score.
Okay.
So colleges, prior to like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, if you got a 3 or higher, they would often award college credit, or at least let you test out of having to take the introductory courses. Colleges now are being a little more stingy. They really want to see 4s and 5s before they would do something like that. But yeah, so a 3 is a passing score out of 5 on the exam.
Okay. So what is the, I guess I think it's the term median, number across the state for earned? Like, was it generally 4? Was it 5? Was it 3? Do you know, like?
It varies by subject. I think we offer 9 AP courses, and in each of those courses, our average score was above 3.
But I mean, throughout the state.
I don't know
you
if
don't, okay.
this date is.
The other question again about the AP courses, what are or who decides the academic requirements to get into the AP courses? Is it the state? Is it district?
It's a district policy.
And does that match up with other district AP course policies? Do you know, like, are there more
I think
stringent?
most AP courses will have some kind of prerequisite grade or coursework that you have to take before you get into a class.
Right,
Like usually it's, like a B+ or higher.
right. But how does ours compare to other districts in terms of their standard to get into an AP course? Is ours the same? Is it lower? Is it higher? I don't know if you have that information.
I
but
think
that would
we're
be helpful to
in
know.
line with other districts, especially in the K-Band League. I can't really speak to other schools because I don't really talk to the principals that much. I do know that there is a trend in some places where they're limiting how many AP courses kids can take out of concern for kids' mental health. It's either Linfield or Lexington. One of the L schools is usually pretty high achieving, limits it to 3 a year for kids.
Is there a plan for, it seems like there's a plan for everything. So, or what is the plan to get those scores? I know we're absolutely should focus on different categories of students, ones that are that need more help to get to the average point or whatever the goal is. And for AP students, how is there a plan to raise the bar for them to get them to the higher? I'm sure there is, but
I mean,
don't want that
honestly, like
population to be
if we're looking at
far.
the U.S. News and World Report, that's where we did the strongest, is with AP performance. Because having 87% of your kids getting a 3 or higher is pretty high.
Right.
If anything, I think I've said it before, I'd like to see that number actually go down a little bit, because that would mean there's some marginal kids who maybe we've kind of left out of AP courses in the past, but now we're giving them a chance to really push themselves. I see our pass rates get a little bit lower, but increase the access that some kids have to the courses.
So to lower the bar to get into an AP course?
No, I'm not saying lower the bar. I would like to
okay.
see our passing rate. So when they take the test, like the average would go down a little bit because we'd be letting kids in who in the past maybe would have been excluded from taking AP courses.
Why would they have been excluded from taking AP courses?
Because either maybe they didn't meet a prerequisite or they didn't have a high enough grade in the previous course.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So you would drop the requirements lower.
Yeah, I think we could look at the prerequisites to see if there are some kids who are like leaving out of AP courses that could, if they are willing to work hard and be challenged, that they should be in those classes.
Are there any other questions?
I have some questions.
I'm first looking, well, I just want to be clear for myself and for the audience. So MCAS stop in 10th grade. And what you get used to as an elementary school parent is they take their math and their ELA, and then they get to 9th and 10th grade. And is it science both years?
Science in ninth grade, and then 10th grade is ELA and math.
Okay. But science only in 9th grade?
Only science in ninth
Only
grade,
science.
biology specifically.
Right. So the spring 2024 MCAS are the results, or those are the seniors of and juniors of today.
Correct. The juniors were the science, the seniors were ELA and math.
And I think it's important to note that, or to look at, if this is a blip, I'd like to see where these classes ranked all along, up until that point. Because now we don't know. They're 11th and 12th graders, and we just don't know. So the 2025 scores are not these students. So I'd like to look back at it, where this blip is, and if it is a blip. Right. That was my question. You said it much more articulately, yeah. Because I think it's only fair, if we're going to call it a blip, we really need to see if it is. And I would like to see that.
So I think we have two different ideas of what a blip is. So you're talking about like a cohort analysis, but we're looking at like, how did the classes trend over time?
Mhm.
It's like apples and oranges. So I'm happy to do a cohort analysis to see how these kids did from 3rd grade through 10th grade.
Mhm.
But that's going to be a different look than, I'd have to have some comparison groups if you want to talk about it being a blip. So if I took like the current sophomores and the current freshmen, I guess I'd have to look at kids who've already graduated and look at those trends, because I have 3 data points to see if there's a trend, at least 3.
Sorry, Scott asked me to come over, so I was at
Yeah.
the mic. So the state keeps the MCAS data, they call it embargoed, usually until the end of September, beginning of October, which is when then the reports go out. And at that time, they unembargo it. So at that time, we can share more particulars around it. And in the MCAS presentation, which I usually do mid-October, we typically look at the year before versus the current year. So I think that would meet the need of your ask, because then we can see the growth from one year to the other. If you want to go back beyond that, that information is all also publicly available, but we couldn't share it until that time just because of the guidelines of the state.
I think it's important to look at
Yeah.
all of that.
Sure, we do usually do that in the presentation, so we can certainly do that. And then if there's questions, the nice thing is then you can see the growth from year to year. We can look at the SGP, which is where they put the students in the like groups. And then you can see the year to year trends from 24 to 25.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask, I know, and I'm looking at MCAS results right now, they drill down right to the question. We know exactly what questions
Yes, they
these
do.
students get correct and,
Mhm.
and incorrect. And how is the high school dealing with that? Are you saying, oh, these, like, we're looking at the cohort? You said DESE isolates and gives you the cohort of who didn't perform
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And what does the high school do
Mhm.
to say, okay, these are the areas where kids are missing?
So John, if you want to respond to that, but I will say the state does, yes, makes not only the question, but the standard. And so questions often include multiple standards. And so many teachers and department heads actually flip it, where they'll look at the standard, because to be able to look at how a student does with a certain standard being asked multiple ways and multiple questions is really helpful. And so we do to look at that data, but I'll let you give
Sure.
specifics.
So there's all kinds of reports that are available, and DESE maintains a huge database called Edwin, and there's all kinds of ways you can slice and dice the reports. And one of the reports that we spend a lot of time looking at is the item analysis that you just mentioned. So for example, there was one year when an English test, it was about how an author's word choice impacts the tone of a story. So we were below the state average, which we should never be below the state average on any of these item analyses. So I went to the English department head and I said, make sure the teachers are focusing on they pay attention to diction and tone and the author's purpose for using certain words, not just in informational text, but also narrative text and poetry, of course. So they have multiple opportunities to practice that skill. Last year, there was kids did not do well on a circle theorem question. And so I brought that to the math department chair and then looked at it and I actually saw we talked, it was actually 2 years ago, it was a circle theorem. So then I saw that a lesson where a teacher was actually teaching, and I'd never seen our teachers teach this particular theorem before about a circle. So I was like, how about that? This was a trend that I recognized. I brought it to the department head, and now here it is. I'm witnessing it in class for the first time. So we look at that item analysis, and then hopefully we see it in classroom instruction. The trick is it's kind of a moving target. So sometimes the test designers, they'll put a question in, kids tank on it, but then teachers focus on this particular standard, and then it's not really assessed as much in the next MCAS. So it's really important to make sure we're teaching all the standards. We can pay attention to what kind of questions there are and what the trends are, but it's important to make sure we're teaching all the standards, not just a select few.
I agree. The other piece that is really tricky about MCAS is that it's not data for the teacher, for the students in front of them that year. It's for the students they had the previous year. So while it's certainly, I think, is really helpful to illuminate places in our curriculum where we need to amplify teaching and learning around certain standards, when we talk about either in the school improvement plans or in the budget times, the other benchmark assessments that we do, like STAR for the elementaries, like iReady for middle school, and this program that we want to build for 9th and 10th graders in particular, that's the data of the kids who are right in front. So what we can do is we can pull standards where students from the previous class had struggled. We can look at our curriculum for where they're a match, or we can write them in, or we can amplify them, and then use the data from the kids right in front of teachers to really look at it. But that's one of the reasons why MCAS data for practitioners is tricky. It tells us a story for sure and illuminates things for us to look at. But for teachers in the moment with students in front of them, it's not necessarily a match to those students. So that's why when we talk about those other assessments, those are so important because we triangulate the data for the students, not just based on MCAS, because it's not their current kids.
Can I just jump in there? Because I think like what Jen was driving at before is sort of what you're speaking to now, where it's obviously important to try to improve the, teaching and stuff for the next group that's coming up, but also in terms of following up with the older students whose scores were suffering or struggling. How are you using? I understand your point. Like if you don't have the MCAS data year over year to compare with the same group. So how do you close that gap in terms of the use of other, like in your next steps, the use of the other benchmark assessments to help address the issues for those students?
It's a great question. So that's thinking about, I don't think we're on that slide, but how John was talking about bringing in data discussions. So it's a way to support teachers in meeting regularly to look at a cross-section of data for their students. So MCAS data is important, especially in illuminating standards where students may have struggled, like the example that John gave, and then looking at it triangulated alongside data from their current students and having time to meet and talk and do that cross-section multiple times across a year. It can be tricky at the high school level because as students move through the grades, there's a lot of standalone classes, which is why I think when we start, we'll really focus on grades 9 and 10 because their teachers have more common curriculum because students haven't differentiated off into all their APs and various courses that they're doing. But the time in a schedule, the resources for the multiple data sources, and then the facilitation around that discussion is really important. And John is naming that as something that the high school will work on this year, which I think is great.
The other thing I wanted to add, and this is super specific, but since you raised the example about tone, would be interesting to have, I'm sure you're having lots of conversations with the ELA department heads around teachers around AI, but I've like in a lot of reading, author's voice and tone is one of the things that gets lost a lot in utilizing AI tools. So I don't know how you guys are navigating that, but
So I can respond from a district perspective, and then if you want to speak as a principal. So the state has given new guidance about AI. They haven't yet given AI standards, but those are down the road, I'm sure. So part of the guidance is that districts need to establish foundational knowledge about what AI is for teachers, and that's a variety of pieces. It's what it is, it's looking at local policies, and I know Amy Gregory and Keith Borgen have presented on that in the past, and it's how to best use AI in the template of those policies. So actually on our PD day, which is in October, we're taking the first session and doing foundational AI PD with a group called Day of AI, who are out of MIT. And they're coming to do that foundational work. So then we are supporting what the state has said we should be doing in the foundational AI, and we're having subsequent workshops that really match our policies, helping teachers. And in particular, there's a world of conversation around AI in all subjects, but especially, like you said, in English and text creation and in reading. So I'll be really fascinated to see what this MIT group has to share about it, and that will be part of, you'll see it in our school improvement plans this year. We're, for the first time, bringing in AI school improvement plan goals into the middle and high school to begin, mainly because they're at the first year of their cycles, and so we're addressing that.
I have one more thing that I would like to request. When you do your presentation to the school committee in October on the 2025 MCAS, I think it would be helpful for us to see, because of this particular thing that we might be calling a blip, just, and, you know, you're suggesting that the scores are already higher. But I think it would be important for us to see, okay, these scores are higher, but for each, I don't know how to ask it, but over time, look at them as cohorts and follow.
You can do that.
So this 2025 high school, you know, the 10th graders, this is how they performed in third grade. And have the presentation differently so that we can look at it over time.
So what that is that's this SGP, the student growth percentile, which we could certainly get into. So what the state does is, starting in third grade to fourth grade, groups students in like groups of students all across Massachusetts. And then as a student goes through the years of MCAS, they're included in like groups, and there's a SGP percentage. And we can talk about how usually you want to see that percentage around 50%. 50 to 60% means that a student, not just with Ipswich peers, but with like peers, is statewide learning and showing what they've learned at an appropriate rate. And so with principals, we sit and we look at the SGPs, and we look at where they're low, and we look at where they're high, and we look for trends either in student demographics or in curriculum. And that's certainly data that the state makes available that we could look at. So it's not so much following the whole cohort according to the state. They find it's better to look, it's student by student to their SGP, and then they do an average of it that they report out for a particular grade.
I think what I'm,
I hear what you're saying, Jen. So
you know?
I think what we're looking for is like a reference point. So what I can do is I can go back all the way into elementary school, include the state average, and then how Ipswich kids did. And we can look at that over time, because it's not super helpful just to see how Ipswich did unless there's something to compare it to. So I think if I include a state average, which tends to be more stable over time, just because it's a larger number of sample, it's a bigger sample size. So I think that would be interesting to do that. We can certainly take a look at it.
Yeah, and although it's interesting for state average, I'd also be interested to see, I know you had in your slide, what you called like similar populations of schools, like one was Uxbridge. But I'd like to see Manchester, Essex. I'd like to see Hamilton, Wenham.
Those are not like districts, and those districts are different from ours.
So
They just are.
the state would say not, we can do that, but the state would say not to because they're not like in.
We can certainly do it.
But we could do it for you if you want. And DESE actually has a tool, that scatter plot one.
Yeah, I mean, we can just pull.
We could do it if you
can
wanted.
pull all that. We can do the Cape Ann League schools if you want.
Yeah, I think it's of particular interest, especially as families make decisions about choice and schools in the geographic area. I think it's important to look at who we're right next to in comparison.
We could certainly do that. There's a tool to make that available. Do want to highlight too, as John shared, it's clear that we dropped in the U.S. News and World Report ranking. You know why, but also to share how well we did in the Boston Magazine, which is to my eyes, a more well-rounded approach to looking at a student's education. So totally validating the importance of both of the rankings, but also just naming that we did really well. And much better than our Cape Ann peers, not to put them down, but we did. So
except for two.
All right, thank you. We will look forward to hearing the MCAS presentation to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up, we have the strategic planning committee presentation.
As you're moving to that one, you mentioned the next discussion, the MCAS in the fall. We had a bunch of follow-up questions. That'd be good to have them back next week on the trending that we talked about. Yeah, thank you.
I think I requested October 16th.
That is our next meeting. It's a quick follow-up.
Okay.
So I guess if
Okay.
there's any,
Sure.
information we have to, adjust.
sure, sounds like John and I can put our heads together and put together some more immediate data. Again, we can't share the 2025 until the state unembargoes it. And if there are more specifics for the MCAS presentation in October, I've definitely heard them, but feel free to reach out or let Dr. Blake know.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we welcome strategic planning committee member. Who is presenting? Carl? You presenting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not.
How are you?
No.
Nice plug in.
Nice to see you.
Stop talking, you want to slide you in.
That was best.
What?
Yeah, I saw
Don't mess with John's letters. Let him go.
Ready to do?
I can.
Okay, well, Carl, while you set up, we're going to hear from our high school student representative.
Okay. Well, I guess really not a lot to report. But I think the main issue, really not to always bring issues, but everything's good. But I think the thing with the ban of clubs meeting during our block, I know I brought this up last week, and I kind of realized I didn't really ask for anything to be done. I just kind of said it, and I want to keep coming here and just complain because I mean that's not really helpful, I guess. But so I guess I was wondering. I know the problem with it was that teachers would be kind of double dipping on their salaries as well as getting stipends for running the clubs. So I'm wondering if maybe instead of like, I mean, obviously it would have to be negotiated with the teachers, but instead of stipends, in order to allow for the clubs still to be run during our blocks, to get some sort of other compensation, maybe like time or maybe a different, I don't know what really. I was thinking maybe some sort of like time, extra days off or something like that. The other thing is maybe to have people from the community to still come in and run the clubs. Because it does limit people being able to participate, and especially having them during, like, I mean, I know I do a class during our block, so, or during our block on Tuesdays, which is right now the only time we can meet. So I'm kind of have my hands tied with that. I'm still able to do it, but not as much as I'd like to. And the other thing is, a lot of clubs have their competitions. Some of them, I mean, Model UN is, DECA is very much so. And a lot of schools actually have classes for them, but I think we need to have the time to meet for them. So I guess if we can maybe find some sort of workaround on that, I guess is what we'd ask. And then beyond that, not really much else. Pretty good.
Yeah, all right. Have you guys talked about this at student council, I assume? Or no?
I don't.
The student advisory council?
Our first meeting.
Oh, you
is,
haven't had it yet? Okay. Would that be something appropriate to bring up there or no?
There's a lot of contractual stuff that.
Yeah, no, I know.
In the weeds, so.
Yeah.
That meeting also,
But-
I want to talk about like the food maybe, we should improve that, because I know I also can't just come here and say, oh, I want the food.
Cheeseburgers are not contractual.
Yeah.
But I think it's neat to, try to think outside the box and see if there is a solution that, could.
Yeah, because I mean, the prior student rep was saying this too, so it's been an issue for students for a while.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for curriculum night. At this point, we do have to ask you to leave the building. It is a school night, and we need our staff rested and ready to go tomorrow morning. Thanks again for coming. Bye.
Okay, got it.
You're back up.
Ready.
I'm sorry, just as we exit Jack's report, so thank you for that. I would ask actually the clubs at our block and accessibility of the bathrooms is something we've heard multiple times from student rep report and has been raised by parents, but we haven't heard a resolution on either of those or what actions are being taken. I think that would be good for us to hear about next time we meet. Thank you.
My understanding, Dr. Blake, is that there's a dual issue probably with our blocks, one of which being contractual, the other is how does DESE define time on learning?
Correct.
So I think that there's probably two things that need to be addressed there. If DESE decides that's not time on learning, then you might find yourself as a deficit.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. Carl, you're back on.
Okay, good. So thanks for having me. Hope this is close enough. Carl Nyland, member of the select board, member of the strategic planning committee. And what we wanted to do tonight was, as maybe you know, present to you the draft of the committee report, kind of walk you through what you'll see in it. I don't know if you've had a chance to glance at it yet, but when you do, I'll walk you through the highlights of what the committee's work has looked like and the information we're passing along to the boards to make some longer term decisions with. A couple of the members are here. Kate Elliott has been a member on the committee. Jim Engel, sitting in the second row there. Behind him is Greg Churchill. Two of our members, Rob White from the Finance Committee and Clark Ziegler, citizen representative, couldn't make it tonight. But it's been a good group. We've been at this for getting close to a year now. So ready to be done with this phase of the work. So I think probably don't have to go over the sort of mission membership background. As I said, we established the Strategic Planning Committee about a year ago through the select board. It kind of picked up with work that had been done by a previous similar committee some years ago called the Strategic Planning Work Group. And Dr. Blake was on that, some other members, and they reproduced a report, sort of the first version, I guess, of the report you see now in front of you. This one is
much more comprehensive and involves some more interesting modeling, because the two charges we had, one was to develop a current list of what we would, we came up with a definition for it, but what we call strategic investments for town schools and utilities. And then to develop some kind of fiscal models we could use to understand what the fiscal impact of working through those and funding those investments could look like. And I'll share some of the findings on that in a minute here. All of the data was collected through a survey methodology, meaning that it all came from the departments. Strategic Planning Committee doesn't come up with any numbers, doesn't invent any projects. We query the school department, utility departments, town hall departments. They put forward the projects that fit the criteria we're looking for. And that's what we use as the basis for our work. And our definition for strategic investment was any investment over $500,000 in value that exceeds the normal ability of it's outside the limits of Proposition 2.5 or beyond expected utility rate annual increases. So it's important to remember that we're talking about tax impact, property tax impact, but also utility rate impact, water, wastewater, or electric. There are, I think, 62 investments on the list. I don't expect you to read that, but you have this in the report. Spans across all the major divisions of the town, schools, utilities, and town hall. And we are sort of in a constant, not constant, but a periodic state of updating this. So the idea is probably obvious point. This is a living list. So we need a process to make sure we update it periodically at any point in time. If you looked at it, you might poke a hole in it and say, oh, that figure is off or this year is off. That's true because the list is somewhat changing. So we do our best to keep it up to date. We'll probably do one final pass through before we release the report just to pick up any new things that have changed, some significant things that have changed. There's a set of assumptions that we use that are in the report. For how we develop the scenarios. So we modeled this based on, for example, the median home value and the taxes applied to a median home value in town. We use some assumptions about the average consumption of utility services, water, wastewater, and electric. And that's the basis for all the modeling that you'll read about in the report. So scenarios. We took those investments, which included the cost of them, and developed, the way we think about it is what we were asked for was a set of scenarios, not to sort of answer the question of how definitively should we work through these investments. It wasn't the committee's job to figure that out. It's the committee's job to provide information to the boards, to the school committee, to the select board, to the finance committee to do that determination. So we're enabling you with data like scenarios to help with that decision making. So one thing we did was to look at a scenario, I think we sort of called it the base scenario, which is what if we funded everything that came to us? And what this chart shows, left to right on the axis is 10-year span. So over the course of 10 years from 2025 to 2035, what are the projects that were submitted that would hit the ratepayer or the taxpayer in one of those years? And then what you see on the y-axis is the cost, total cost for all those projects in that year for rate increases or property tax increases. So if you looked at the zero, the x-axis there, that is current rate and tax impact. So whatever you pay today, the way you can understand this chart is you would pay what this chart says that much more in 10 years if we funded everything that we got, all 62 investments, or at least of the 62, the ones that fell in the first 10 years.
Plus 2.5% a year.
Now this one, does this one show 2.5% increase? I don't think it does. This is just investments. But we did model
But the normal
that.
tax increase.
That's true. So
does.
it actually grows a little bit more. It's a good point because if we don't do any of these investments, of course, taxes still go up every year by 2.5%. Rates still go up every year by some defined percentage. So this would be on top of all of that. And if you can't see the numbers, it's about, the top of the chart is at the end of 10 years is about $4,500 in additional taxes and utility rates for an average valued home. Okay, questions on that?
That's per year. An increase.
That is correct, per year. Yep. And this assumes, one little nuance to this to remember is everybody, of course, is affected. All households are affected by property taxes. Not all households are affected by electric rates. Not all households are affected by water and wastewater rates. They may not be on water, they have private wells, or they have septic systems. This assumes a household that is affected by all of that. The next scenario we looked at is what is the year over year, right? Not the cumulative, but year over year, what would the increase look like? So here you can see that same 10-year span, and on the y-axis you see the tax increase in each year from one year to the next. So you can see in this scenario, again, this is all investments. If we did all the investments, then you're looking at an increase of about a max of about $1,000 year over year.
Is there some way for us to sort of compare this to the project list that shows like the correlation between the increase with whatever the project is, that where that's coming from?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't share it here, but there is a very detailed modeling spreadsheet that this comes from. And in there, you can manipulate all the data and do just what you're describing.
And I think maybe you talked about this at the FinCom meeting last week, where you're going to try to turn that modeling into something that we can all kind of look at to manipulate.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. I'll talk about that a little bit in the recommendations, but that is our hope.
Okay.
Yep. So then another thing, as you know, that we looked at was to try to get some understanding if there was, or some guidance from the boards on what level of increase in rates and taxes do we think is tolerable by the community? I mean, one scenario is we think the community can afford to do everything, and so we have the figures for that. Many people have said it may not be affordable to do all of these projects within 10 years. And so, as you know, we queried the three boards and asked them two questions. One was, what is the cumulative increase over 10 years that you would like to see us stay within? What's the maximum increase over 10 years? And what's the maximum increase year to year? So what this slide shows is the summary findings from the survey of the three boards. And what it says, if you can't read the fine print, the top one is the year over year increase, and the bottom one is the cumulative increase. And it says that year over year, the consensus was about $500, and cumulatively it was $2,800. I think that's right. So if you applied that to the investments, you could start to see both what we could do within those limits and what we can't do. And that is the kind of discussion and the kind of decision that ultimately the boards are going to have to make, unless, again, the decision is made to pursue everything. So I moved from scenarios to, one other thing is we did put, I just added this tonight. It is in the report, wasn't in the slide deck. We did run one sort of model scenario to just show the actual impact for an example household. So there's probably a little small text to read on screen here, but when you look at it, what it'll show you is for an average household, the top part shows you what is the current tax and rate impact on that household. Again, assuming they have electric, water, wastewater service, and obviously pay property taxes. And then moving left to right in the top portion of the chart, what's the effect of Proposition 2.5 and routine annual rate increases. So that number bumps up a little bit, moves from 14,000 in 2025 to a little over 19,000 in 2035. And the bottom part adds in if we did a select number of those investments living within the limits of what the boards were interested in. And then you can see that we move from a household impact of 14,000 to a household impact 10 years out of about 22,000. So we just thought that might make it a little bit more digestible for people to sort of see it applied to an example household. And you could do this for, any household you wanted to model. Okay, so findings and recommendations, lots of text here, but the couple things I would highlight, one is that you saw the consensus that we have, at least from the major boards, on these, what could be these annual and cumulative increases. So that's food for thought for the boards. I'll get to the recommendations on that in a minute. We did note, this is sort of an obvious point, but we had a lot of discussion about how these costs disproportionately affect different kinds of households. People on fixed incomes, people on lower incomes. And so our recommendation would be to look hard at some of the programs that exist that can help to alleviate some of that impact on the most affected households. Because these, no matter how we pursue these projects, the costs are significant and will be really significant to certain households in town. So that's one thing for us to sort of look at and see if we want to pursue some programs to help with that. And what else? We did develop what we sort of termed as kind of the major project list. Because if you look at all 62 projects, what you find is that there's a relatively small number that really affect the costs. There's about a half dozen of them that have the most significant impact. Probably projects you know about: the school building project, the school overrides, the water treatment plant, the new pump station at the wharf, and
Public safety.
Public safety building. Those are really the big ones. That everything else is not insignificant, but this is, I don't know what percent, but the vast majority of the percent of the cost and rate increase comes from just these 6 projects. So we sort of were using those as the ones to really focus on and sort of organize our thinking about a sequence and a cost impact around those, and then maybe sort of fit the other projects in around those. So recommendations, I won't go through all of them, but the fundamental idea here is that one, we need to develop to agree to a sequence of and a cost for approaching these projects. Which projects do we want to do, in what sequence, at what cost to tax and rate payers? We need to agree to that, and then more importantly, probably we have to stick to it. So how do you do that? So we have some recommendations on how we think that could be done. One is to make sure that some committee in town, and the recommendation we have is it's the finance committee, be responsible for maintaining the investment list, updating it, and for holding the town and the boards accountable to adhering to whatever agreement we come to for the approach we want to take. We also have a suggestion that you go a step further, which would be to put this into a bylaw. So it's really binding on the town so that we have to live with the decisions we make about how to work through these series of investments. And we actually one of the members wrote a model bylaw that the committees, the boards could consider. And then we'd have an annual process, again, presuming the finance committee would take a responsibility for it, to update the list and make it available just as we get ready to do budget development. So the idea is we'd have this as context for budget setting every year. So you can kind of see what's coming for major investments. Consider that when we think about the formulation of the budget. So sometime in the fall, that work would be done. And we did talk about, you mentioned the idea of a friendlier modeling tool. We are looking into whether we could produce such a thing. That anyone, if you wanted access to the spreadsheet we have, you're welcome to it. But it's pretty complex. You can certainly play with it and run some scenarios, but it's a lot to understand. So what we're looking at is basically creating a better interface that would be a tool you all could use to run your own scenarios, sequence the projects the way you would like to do it, support board discussions around that sort of thing, and then play out what the cost impact would look like. Don't know yet if we're going to be able to produce such a thing, but we're looking into it. And the other key thing is just to agree to a process that if conditions change, which they will, new things will come up that we didn't anticipate, that we have to go back and rework the model, particularly if we agree to certain constraints on spending. We can't just add new projects. If new projects come to light that we have to deal with, we should go back and look at the model, look at our investment list, and adjust our plan so that we can stay within whatever spending thresholds we establish. Again, assuming that we do that. And the last thing we noted, which is a little outside the direct responsibility of the committee, but it's something you would note, is one way to help this, our ability to fund some of this work, is to grow our tax revenue. And the really only way we have to do that is through new growth. Right? We're limited in property tax by 2.5 plus new growth. And our new growth has been relatively stagnant for some years. It's a hard number to move. It's new development. But it is where we could realize some additional new tax revenue that would help alleviate the burden on the existing taxpayers. So we need to look at ways that we could potentially stimulate some new growth. There was a time in town, I think 10 or so years ago, where our new growth rates were higher. And if you look at some of our surrounding towns, and even statewide, those new growth rates tend to be higher than ours. So that's just something we should be a little more mindful of and see if there are programs we could put in place to try to shift that a little bit. Won't solve the problem, but it would help. So I'm going to pause there. Let me just look at Jim and Greg and see if I forgot anything that should be mentioned. Good? Okay. Next steps for us are to have these same meetings with each of the boards. So we're going to meet with the Finance Committee this month. We're going to meet with the Select Board the first week of October. We want to give you all time to digest the report, and we would love to get any feedback. We're calling it a draft until we get your feedback. Once we get the feedback, then we're going to do a final report, and we're going to release it to the public. So our goal there is to try to have that done before the fall town meeting. Like to have that out. We would include some information on this in the Finance Committee report, and then we'll put it out. And then it would be up to, we'll help the Strategic Planning Committee will help with this, but then it'll be up to the boards to pick up this conversation individually or as a tri-board and figure out what we all will do with the recommendations.
Quick question on if the general bylaw were to kind of come forth as the option du jour here, would it be, it seems like that would be, I just want to be clear, would it be unique to the strategic plan, those spending limits?
Yes.
Right. So it would be just sort of packaged as that.
Thank you for all of this. It's a tremendous amount of work. This might be a question for Tri-Board, which I know we don't have one scheduled, but has there been any conversation, could there be conversation about, a non-binding ballot vote where we get a sense from the town on what their threshold or tolerance for these increases would be? Like the same way that boards were polled, could we put something together where we're putting that forth to the town to inform some of this?
Good question to talk about. There definitely needs to be, my opinion, a pretty comprehensive community outreach of some kind to have a discussion about this. Maybe that's an idea like that could be part of it. Yeah.
Can I also just ask a clarifying question? I think it was slide 11 in your deck on the, it's table 2 in the report, example cost of impact for an average household in Ipswich. Does this account for if we did everything?
This is for no.
Like the big 8?
This would assume, I think this assumes the cost increase from the strategic investments live within these spending limits, that the consensus that was identified from the boards. So within that, there's various ways you could think about what could be funded, but I think we did model the sort of major 5 or 6 projects. So we could do living within, I think, the 10-year increase, and Jim, check me if I get this wrong. I think we could live within the 10-year increase and do the 5 major projects. There would be at least 1 year, maybe 2, where we would deviate from the year-to-year increase, specifically for the school building. There's just no way to get that project on the books without it costing more than $500. So technically violates the agreement if we were to agree to that level, but it's only 1 year out of the 10, I think, where that happens. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. Thank you. Being aware of the low-income homeowners and renters and seniors on fixed income is really important. And in the section 5C, chapter 59 of the Mass General Law, it allows 35%, as I think you were saying, residential exemption of the assessed value. So my question is, or it's up to 35%, like who would, if that does, it seems like that is probably going to happen, or you guys are going to consider something like that. So who would determine the percentage, because it's up to 35, and then, the requirements of who would be allowed to be exempt? I mean, I know you're not there yet, but, and then how is the rest of that shouldered to the rest of the population?
All good questions. I probably would defer some of that, because I'm not an expert on that program. The decision ultimately would be up to the boards to decide whether to pursue it.
Okay.
There actually, I think, are a couple different programs. One of them, you would actually have to petition the legislature to allow you to do it. They have to approve it for you to do it. Maybe the one that we reference in the report. The other idea we had talked about is within local control, which is when we set our annual tax assessments, there's a series of options you can exercise. One of them is to vary your tax rate. And you can vary it based on different factors like income or household value. We don't do that, but we could. So we'd have to discuss those, I think, as committees and decide if it was something to pursue. And that's where we'd look into the details you're asking about.
Thank you. In terms of, increasing the population to have more people to pay the taxes, do businesses pay more in local taxes? For some reason, I thought that, but I'm not sure.
They pay a different rate.
Different, like a higher rate.
Tax rate, yeah.
Higher rate. Okay.
Yeah.
Not in Ipswich.
Um,
Not in
Not in
Ipswich.
Ipswich?
No.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It is level, the same tax rate. That's another one we could differentiate the tax rate, but I think the conventional wisdom is that you have to get to a certain percent of property that's in a commercial category before it's worth doing that. And ours isn't there.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Carl, thank you. I echo what Haley said. This is so much work, and thank you. Back to that slide, the Ipswich typical residential cost impact, table 2. I think what would be helpful to me, and maybe as this goes forward and these projects hopefully go forward, when you say medium home value property taxes, I think and I know this from, former override discussions, I think everybody has a different idea of where they get the median home value. And I believe that's based on a tax assessor's value.
That's where we get it.
Right. I think as this progresses, it would be helpful for the citizens of Ipswich to make decisions based on readily being able to look that up. And I think we all, we think, well, my house, I could sell for this amount. I think people kind of know what their overall tax bill is, but I think maybe there's a majority of decision makers who don't know. And if there's a calculator somehow to say, well, this is how you look it up on the tax assessor's
I mean, just to know
website.
what your property value is?
So I look and it's, median home value property taxes in 2025 is $8,000, but where does my house fall into that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
how to look it up readily
Yeah.
and do a comparison. I think it's great that the median home value property taxes is on here, but I think the everyday citizen needs to say, well, let me look that up. What's,
Yeah, how do I compare
because in their
myself?
head, they think, well, am I medium or no, I'm down here, but they don't know the exact. So if there's a calculator that can be provided somewhere along the way.
Oh, there is one on here. I just happen to know this one that you just search up your name and it gives you what your
Yeah, so.
tax value is.
But
Not
you-
necessarily market, but.
Right, and you're a student, and I know you have an interest in real estate and things like that, but I think the common citizen might not. So this is a lot of work goes into this, but.
It's on your tax bill, or the audience
I
is
think
saying,
you're
I
looking at
know,
the
yeah.
town tax, the Assess Pro site. Yeah, right.
And another way this is sometimes presented is what's the increase to the taxpayer per thousand? That's another way that I've seen it, sort of like it's 12 cents per thousand increase instead of a dollar amount that might,
Run it
but
out for
probably
different
doesn't apply to you unless you happen to own a $781,000 house. Exactly.
One of the things we talked about previously was smoothing out the year over year. So I may have an old version. In the current one I have, we get a school override, and a municipal override all in 2030. Both financially, but also politically, like we would never do all three. So certainly as we get there, we'll adjust. I would just suggest for your modeling, leave the school, but adjust the other ones to help smooth even in your model if you're presenting this to the town.
Yeah, we actually did run a couple scenarios just like that, just to show what the effect would be.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of discussion we
Maybe I
need
should
to
have an
have.
old one, but that would, yeah.
Yeah.
That would help.
No, it's good. That's exactly the conversation we need to have. Because, there are costs,
Yeah.
financial or other kinds of costs to doing that. That's what we have to figure out if we can tolerate.
Well, and then the increase, right? So if you decide, well, we're not going to do it all in this year because we want to smooth it out, then what increase are you paying if you're waiting another X amount of years?
Well, yeah. So I'd say things. One is, make your own judgment. When you look at that investment list, I would say there's no frivolous items in there. This is not a wish list of things we'd love to do if we had unlimited funds. This is pretty necessary things: roads, bridges, housing, schools. So if you look at them item by item, some people I think would be hard pressed to say, I don't want that. But then you have the reality of what it costs to do it. And your point is good. If we decide we're not going to do certain projects, it probably doesn't mean never. It just means not now. And so when we do them, they're going to cost more.
That was my question. How can you quantify or qualify like the cost of avoidance? Because it's easy to, like you said, just chop off, say, oh, we don't want to go above that threshold.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? And does it even save you money in the end?
I mean, you can run the model out. We used a 20-year horizon when we collected the data, but we really only modeled 10 because the thought was after 10 it gets a little murkier. But you could try to run a longer term model to see what happens to those projects when I push them out 5 years or whatever.
Adding like whatever else you need to do along the way to
Yeah.
get them there,
Right.
It's a lot.
Right. That's our challenge.
Oh, we saw that with the public safety building, the delays and what that is costing. And then we also see that with a potential school building project when it was defeated last time, and the significant increase that we're looking at this time. We can calculate those numbers, what the difference is.
Yeah. I mean, we're living it. Water treatment plant was the same. So we had a number and it rose significantly. So
That's my other question is, so I know you want to get the report out. Do you foresee your committee dissolving? Like, I know you said you'd pass off this list to the finance committee, or would this committee kind of still annually say to the boards, where are the projects at? Like how can we update the inputs?
well, I probably ultimately that's a question for the select board that appoints the committee. But I think our thinking is that's why we want to vest the authority into a permanent committee. I mean, I suppose in theory you could try to keep a strategic planning committee going for years, but I think our members are ready to submit their report and you're going to have turnover, and I'm not sure that's the wisest move. So I think it'd be better to put that responsibility in one of the three major boards.
So you feel like you set it up and now like another board can kind of take it over and do that annual?
Yeah, and going forward, it should be relatively straightforward to maintain. There'd have to be some, process for resurveying departments or submitting new projects or revisions to projects, and then some rerunning of the model every year as you get ready for budget development. But I don't think that's a big task to do. The harder thing, honestly, is not rerunning the numbers and keeping the investment list up. The harder thing is living to whatever commitments we make to live within some funding approach. It's going to be really hard.
I have one last question.
Go ahead.
Okay. You talked about presenting something in the finance committee booklets. That's right.
Yeah, we'll put I don't think we'll have time to get the full report in. Well, I don't think it'll be done by then, but we did a summary of the strategic planning committee's work in the previous finance committee report for previous town meeting, and we'll do something similar for the next one.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know what was going out there, what was super final. So
Yeah.
we'll know soon.
Yep. If you have, any suggestions on what you do or don't want to see in the report, send us your thoughts. We won't meet with the select board until the 6th of October, and then we need a little time after that. So I don't really have a hard date, but maybe by the middle of October would be sort of the latest. Or early October would probably be better to get comments back. We'll probably
go in the booklet, or they do.
It's not going to go in the fall booklet. It's going to go in the spring town meeting booklet. We can't get it
no
in.
fall, but just a summary. We're not going to do the full.
We don't have that
report.
much time.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
have
think.
until the 2nd or 3rd of October, according to the finance committee.
Right. So if you're not meeting with the select board until after that.
Well, we can do a summary. We're not going to publish the report until town meeting, but a summary of the committee's work that we can do before.
And so when you say you're going to publish a report for town meeting, it's going to be like handed out, it's going to be projected. What is your plan?
Oh, I'm not saying we're going to have it at town meeting. We're just using town meeting as a deadline.
Okay.
I don't honestly know how we're going to distribute it other than put it on our town website.
I just wanted to put in a plug for our role in this whole thing, because if I think 4 of the 9 recommendations are, the 3 boards should come to consensus on, the 3 boards should agree to. So we do have a very big role in this. And I know maybe some of the members feel like, our lane is the schools and we shouldn't be weighing in on tax impacts or water projects or things. But I feel like we do have a very big role in this. I mean, we're elected officials, the water, public safety, all these things impact all of us, including our students. So I just want to emphasize that I do think we have a very important role in this. And our projects, the school projects, the overrides, our buildings are expensive and they're a big piece of the strategic plan. So I just want to make sure that we take an active role in this and have a seat at the table, because if we don't, we're the ones that we obviously want our projects to pass, but we need to sort of, collaborate and get involved and support each other as sort of a unified leadership of the town. So I just want us all to keep that in mind.
I mean, the school projects are the most impactful projects. They impact the numbers more than any other, the override and school building project. So we, in our models, we more or less sort of worked other projects around those, because we know the school building project is on a pretty prescriptive schedule. And the override, you could play with it a little bit, but you have some pretty good forecast data on when you think it will be needed. So.
And Whittier was the other big project that was in the big 6 or big 8, which is not technically our school, but it's a school. And that's a pretty expensive project as well. And also on a similar timeline to us. So, and lastly, I think we realized at our last meeting, the report sort of, focused on how expensive everything is. But we need to put a little more language in there and be talking about these projects. They are really important projects for the town. So, yes, they're expensive, but I think the message really has to be, many of these projects are really essential, overdue, important for the infrastructure of our community, for our property values, for our kids, et cetera. So having that positive, we need a positive spin on it, because these projects are really important.
Well, I think I would say that's the lens to use when you're looking at the data. If you do agree that there's a limit to, or we ought to establish some limit to what we can spend, think about what that means for the projects we are therefore not going to do, or at least not anytime soon.
Right.
That's where the discipline will come in.
Yeah. And if we did any, non-binding ballot question or public input, I think there would need to be an education campaign about the value of these projects and the expense. I mean, you could just say, how much do you want your taxes to go up? And everyone would probably say $50. But, so there needs to be some education around how much these projects actually cost and the value of them and the cost of delaying them maybe. So that sort of would need to be part of that. Because I don't think people have any idea how much some of these projects might cost their, up on their tax bill. And they should.
Lousy roads, or dysfunctional bridges, or buildings that are falling down, or, there's a cost to that. Are people willing to put up with that for a longer period of time? That's the conversation we need to have.
On the number of emergency repairs that we've had to make just to the sewer lines in town over the last 2 years, because things are collapsing, and when we're not providing the funding for it, then there's these emergency costs that are coming up.
All right. Thank you, Carl.
Okay. Thanks, Carl. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Boyd, Superintendent's Administrative Report.
So in your packet this evening is my written report. Just some highlights. Tom Gallagher and I met for a monthly meeting regarding athletics. Some of the issues that we discussed were some budgetary concerns regarding the revolving account and our numbers. fall rosters and some facility issues that are being addressed. We're having some issues with the tennis court lights not working again. We had a truck one night a couple weeks ago doing donuts up on the practice field. You guys have a good idea who it was, and it's been dealt with, I think. And there was a small leak in the gym. Thankfully, it didn't cause any damage to the new floor. We also discussed some research regarding our youth programs in Ipswich, and some of our athletic programs. I met with John, Leanne, and Tracy a couple of times to plan the presentation that you saw earlier this evening regarding the rankings. Over the last couple of weeks, I attended several select board meetings to discuss and refine the warrant over the last couple of weeks. It was finalized and signed on Tuesday night this week. We had some language changes in order of the warrant articles that were changed right up until that night. Our admin meeting last week focused on the opening of school, current status of our budget, the mandated trainings that all staff need to complete, and we had a teaching and learning update and safety care training, which is our de-escalation and restraint training that we do, and set those dates. I also facilitated a meeting with our special ed attorney regarding a student issue. Policy, communications, budget, and operations subcommittees all met within the last 2 weeks, and you'll be hearing those reports this evening. The opioid abatement fund planning group, I was asked to be on that planning group, and we met to prepare our presentation to the select board, which we did this past Tuesday night. Some of the abatement funds are being targeted for the school district to use as part in supporting our middle school drop-in program that we started, sort of an extension of the EDP program. We kicked it off last year. The program was free, and we had a great turnout. We tried to institute a nominal fee this year to support the program, and we're having trouble getting signups. So this money will certainly help with that. I think the program is important enough. So this money will certainly help with that, and we're also looking for some additional funding sources to support that program. North Shore Education Consortium had its first board meeting of the week last week in Beverly. Tom, Rob Furtado, Jim Depew, who is our data specialist, and Adam Mullen, elementary principal. We've been working together on some of the documents that we have to submit to MSBA, including the educational profile questionnaire and the enrollment projections. We're also starting on the maintenance and capital documentation that's all online that we'll have to do. We actually have our first school building committee meeting next Wednesday night. We'll kick that off, and we've also developed a Google Drive for all of the documentation that'll be going into that for that meeting and all the committee meetings. I attended a webinar on combating hate in Massachusetts schools. The webinar was presented by the Attorney General's office and reviewed the updated guidance on schools' legal obligations to prevent and address hate and bias incidents. I had my monthly meeting with Alicia Thomas, who's the IEA president this week. And then finally, much of my time, as you know, since last Friday has been spent dealing with the personnel issue that we've had at Winthrop. I've been in close contact with legal counsel throughout the entire process to ensure a fair legal process for everyone involved. I've also been meeting with the IEA and the school administration. And then lastly, we have had nursing coverage the entire time. We always have substitute nurses whenever the nurse is out, just like we do with teachers.
What is the appropriate forum for us to discuss the community engagement around this issue? Is it here as it's been brought up? Is this executive session?
Executive session.
Let's get that scheduled.
But that's only us.
That's right.
Right. So I feel like we need to speak with the community in some capacity.
I agree. I think as soon as an investigation is concluded, there'll be more that we can say.
Yeah.
What about some of the things we heard tonight as far as communication? Like, it wasn't clear that what the nursing coverage is. I think, some of the sensitivity around this comes from communication out. Is there something you could do to communicate out? There is a nurse. Just to reach out to.
Sure, I can send something out to the Winthrop parents.
Yeah, I think Winthrop parents need to know that their kids have a nurse.
Is the nurse going to be the same nurse or is it changing?
It's a sub-nurse, so I think we've had the same nurse there several days, but it hasn't been the same person all week.
Is there any way to get the same person or is that just that you're at the mercy of this?
Right, the mercy of the sub. So who's available on a given day. So, and I have had our middle school nurse also spending time down there just because she knows the system and is able to help out.
And the nurse, whoever's on duty that day has access to all of the student information that is necessary to treat, even though they don't have that personal connection with a sub-nurse.
Right.
But they do have access to all the information. Of course they do. I just wanted to.
Yep.
It's important to know. Okay. Subcommittee working with liaison reports.
We started talking about 3 items, a few FY26 budget items that we reviewed in detail. We spent most of the time talking about the multi-year long-range planning, specifically how do we minimize the impact of overrides with the increasing school budget in comparison to tax revenue? How do we minimize the impact to the taxpayers while still meeting the educational needs? So start that conversation to begin to identify what our specific strategies are. We'll then bring that back to this full committee to talk about what is that plan. It's not just the financials, it's how we think about the education plan. And then the third thing that we began to talk about, and we're start to establish the budget calendar for this year. Not just the dates, but also what does that review look like? So what are we reviewing with this group? What are we reviewing with the finance committee? How do we make sure that we increase the consistency of it? So we're seeing the same things across schools. That came up, that was a theme that came up last year. And then we saw lots of opportunities to simplify it. Lots of additional prep that goes into it from the administrative team that we felt like we could cut back. We'll bring those recommendations here before we make those changes and certainly talk to the finance committee about it, but we began those conversations about how do we improve that for this year. We will anchor on the same major dates. There'll be some things we'll adjust. What else? What's the context of your question?
Finance committee wanted to lock in March, so.
I haven't heard anything about that when we asked that question. They wanted to do early reviews. We asked, what are you looking for? I didn't hear anything back from them.
No, different than that, like the actual presented finance committee, they want to get.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to review the calendar when we meet next, which is in, I think, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. So we'll have our drafts then. We can bring that back to you or directly to Emily, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, as soon as it's ready, just so.
Were they eyeing a certain week? mean, it's typically the first week in March. Is that where if they were eyeing something else, that would be good for us to know.
Outside of this specific date, the one thing that we began to talk about, we'll certainly do, is making sure that we're providing electronic copies of everything to them way ahead of time. So it can be a review of specific things, not a broad line by line review. And so that would be the shift I want. So not knowing the specific date that they're looking for, we want to make sure that time is built in for that.
March 10th and 12th.
Okay, I'll note that. We can talk about it when we meet next. Thank you. Yeah, in your folder is our draft September newsletter. We haven't done this in a minute, so just as a reminder, we prepared the original draft. We wanted to we review it with everybody here, more for general spirit intention of what is in there and the topics, not the specific wordsmithing, although if you've got feedback or you see any mistakes, please let us know. I will, as you're reading through it now, let me just hit the sections. I can kind of comment on it. First, welcome back. A couple times a year, we do a regular letter from the chair, or letter from the entire committee. We have a brief update on the elementary building project. Two most important things there are really just informing that a school building committee has been established, and to make the town aware that there are upcoming events for them, both at town meeting and a ballot in November. The next, we always do some version of a safety spotlight. That's changed month over month. This month, we're highlighting particularly for our students coming back to school and adjusting to schedules, sleep and mental health. As we always do, we've got a little bit of a call to action for parents of here's something they can do as a follow-up. Our normal roundup of activities and accomplishments from last time, some placeholders for some things that we went through this evening, and then upcoming district events. And then I'll note it's always in there, but because we haven't done this in a minute, contacting the school committee. So we've got our email in there, and then making sure, especially for our newer parents or new to the district or newly enrolled students, social media, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, keep up to date, sign up for the newsletter. Any questions, comments, anything in there? Jen, yeah.
Yes. Can we put something in? I mean, we can't say anything specific about the situation with the nurse, but is there something we can put in to acknowledge that there is? Or is that just for the superintendent to do?
I would say just consider the timing. This won't go out for a couple of weeks. By then, I imagine other things will have, like that other communication will have gotten, which I think will address what I'm hearing you're asking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
This doesn't go to the end of the month, so.
Address anything, but just to say superintendent is, I don't know.
You're saying.
Throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think it would be handled there. Should we feel like anything was necessary to reiterate, we could bring that back up, but not knowing what's happening there, I think it's best for us to leave that out right now.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anything else?
I would recommend adding the dates, the location of the election and the poll opening and closing times, just because it's.
For the November. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt. Everybody should know it's the same as it always is, but it's not that's the only thing on the ballot. So that's the only reason people would be going to the ballot. So
Okay.
I think
Yeah, got it. We can add
as much
that.
as we can
That's a good idea.
emphasize when and where.
Anything else?
Can we add that it's so important to be at the town meeting to vote for the.
We can't tell people how to vote.
Oh,
We can tell them to come to town meeting and go to the poll.
Oh,
We can't tell them.
right, true. No,
how
that's
to
true. To go to the town meeting, because that's when the feasibility, that's what I mean. But if it passes, then we will have a town-wide election. So it's based on it passing.
The townwide
Well,
election is going to happen.
we'll have the election either way.
Ballots will be printed and.
But it won't.
The voting is
Just
set
will
up.
be.
Not necessarily true.
So, I mean, it won't like be
Not
actionable.
necessarily true.
I think the
There
other
are,
thing to keep in
there are
mind.
provisions that it would be counted and acted on.
Oh, okay.
There's a school
Yes.
building committee that's going to be able to take over, and really drive the
communications around this, so
Okay.
I think this is kind of launched. Just what you need to know, and then, I think we can kind of, Haley can bring up what she needs us to do.
So I just added a little sentence,
Thank
if
you.
that's okay.
Anything else? Excellent, thank you. That was it for communications.
Operations met last night. We reviewed the school committee goals for school year 2025-26. Our plan last year, our hope last year was that we wouldn't sort of have to reinvent the wheel every year. But we sort of came back to the table this year in looking at the superintendent's evaluation, Jesse, and trying to kind of reformat the goals so that they back into the standards. So the formatting and structure, we did not end up changing, but there's a lot of overlap with the goals that were there last year, just sort of where they're placed and again, how it's formatted is what's different. There was one goal that is brand new that we hadn't addressed that relates to standard 4. And then we also added metrics. So we had some conversation about, can we create a rubric? Can we create something where we're actually taking the goals and trying to create actionable items that hold us accountable as a school committee and that help us to hold administrators accountable. So we've included those as well. And an addendum that sort of breaks down the meaning, purpose, and measurement of each of those metrics. So there's a lot there. We're hoping, we were just trying to email about scheduling our next meeting. Hopefully we can get this in front of the full school committee, maybe at our October 16th meeting, but that's TBD. So
I love, we were working on a rubric and we can make our evaluation ourselves and anybody else? Matt?
Yeah, it was not met since we last talked, so.
Heard from our high school rep, there's no financial report, but we want to just point out that I guess we won't hear one until October 16th. Right. Now we are on to special town meeting warrant article vote and speaking assignments. We can run through, and then I guess it might be nice if people wish to abstain to try and mention that out the gate, because then we'll know if you two really dig into it or not. All right, Article 1, the HERO Act. Question or motion?
Can you remind me how the motions need to be made for these? I get it wrong every time.
Move to recommend.
Move to recommend.
And that even if you don't
Yeah.
support
You're
it,
doing
you
the
move to
positive.
recommend and then vote against.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
You
just
don't
get it
move to,
wrong.
you don't move to oppose.
I move to recommend Article 1, amend HERO Act.
Second. Haley. Further discussion? All in favor? Passed.
And we have discussed some of these before, so it might look like we're not talking about them at all, but we have talked about some of these before, twice.
All right, Article 2, amend school appropriation.
I move to recommend Article 2, amend school appropriation.
Second.
Second by Haley, further discussion? All in favor?
One thing I'll note, it shouldn't change, it's not material, but it's, instead of being presented by the school committee, it's presented by the select board. That's a change since it was discussed here last time.
That is a change.
We
I guess we can do assignments after. If we want to go over them.
Just do them after, it's fine.
Okay.
Run a roll.
All right. Article 3, amend school budget state aid.
I move to recommend Article 3, amend school budget state aid.
Second by Haley, further discussion? All in favor? Okay, passed. 4, amend municipal budget state aid.
Move to recommend Article 4, amend municipal budget state aid.
Second.
Just gonna do them all?
By Haley, further discussion?
I'm gonna try.
Oh, sorry, yes.
All right,
passed. Article 5, appropriations to Essex Tech.
I move to recommend Article 5, appropriation to Essex Tech.
Second. Sasha said not included for discussion.
That's your best.
Excited.
You speed up here, Vern.
And also, this is a change. This was presented by the select board, and now they bounced it back to be our article.
Why is
last
that?
night. Has precedent.
It never comes out of our purview, isn't it? 'Cause it's out of the
We've
town budget.
historically presented on it.
Always historically presented.
Oh, we have? Oh, forgive me.
We stopped presenting the Whittier article last year when we had a new.
Whittier Tech.
On the Whittier board.
Oh, right.
So, but this one they still want us to present.
We'll get to that. Okay. Article 6, terminate beautification revolving fund. And again, we can make a motion, or if you, maybe give like hand signal if you're considering seeing these go away.
I don't feel that we need
know.
to take a position on this one.
So a motion to recommend is to revoke.
No, if you wish to abstain, if there's more than half of us who are abstaining, I think it would nullify any vote. So it's kind of like, is
We
there an
can not take a
appetite
position
to?
on some of these if they have nothing to
Standing
do
away.
with what we do. Does anybody feel that they would like to take a position on this? You do.
I think we should be taking position on everything that's in the warrant. Your previous point as a elected body in the town, I think it's appropriate we take a position on all articles.
Well, I think since we were
Touche.
The
voted
registered,
in a school committee, more so than.
the registered vote can go down as, 2, and
Yeah, I get it.
6. Whatever the number, and, whatever, however people decide to vote, you can show abstentions.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say we have 1 in favor and 6 abstaining, I think that would be worth reporting. So. Have more than half, so I don't know, worth it. Anyways, okay, so I'm hearing at least 1 abstention, 1 in favor. Is there anybody else who wishes to abstain? I see 1 abstention only. Okay, is there a motion?
Your energy around this one?
I'm
not
fine to
pushing for
take
it, I'm just sharing
I'm
how I
fine to
feel.
take a position on it. I'm fine to take a position on it. I don't think it's relevant to us, but to your
We're gonna do a
point,
straw
which
poll,
was my
See
point.
where we're at on
I think
abstaining
that was
versus.
right? There was
Okay.
one.
I move to recommend Article 6, terminate beautification revolving fund.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Jen. Further discussion.
I mean, I will vote on it. I
Okay,
just didn't.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate that,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear both sides. It's tricky. Okay. All in favor? Okay, passed. Next up, Article 7, terminate electric vehicle charging revolving fund.
Feelings on this one before I? All right. I move to recommend Article 7, terminate electric vehicle charging revolving fund.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Kate. Further discussion, all in favor? Okay, passed. Article 8, amend general bylaws, chapter 15 to 29 revolving funds.
Why do I remember this one?
Rolling,
When I need a second.
Ones that were mentioned before this.
Oh, okay. Yep, I remember this one. Took me a minute.
I move to recommend Article 8, amend general bylaws, chapter 15 to 29 revolving funds.
Moved by Sasha,
Second.
by Kate, further discussion, all in favor? Okay, passed. Article 9, elementary school feasibility study.
I move to recommend Article 9, elementary school feasibility study.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Haley, further discussion, all in favor? Passed.
Majority of vote.
Abstain, thank you, sorry, so 6-0-1. Okay.
And wait, sorry, well, I'm just going to update on the motion. I know there's a lot of discussion about the summary. It's all been vetted and approved by all people in the world. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, do we have any clarity,
Twice.
and maybe you know this, but on what Jen can participate in when it comes to this project? We're missing a voice here, and I just want to make sure that she can participate in it. But I don't know, beyond the original guidance, I don't know if there's anything more.
There's no more at this time.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
No.
All right. Article 10, authorize contracts not to exceed 5 years.
I move to recommend Article 10, authorize contracts not to exceed 5 years.
Second.
By Sasha, second by Haley, further discussion? All in favor? Article 11, home rule petition, amend charter, temporary town manager.
Move to recommend Article 11, home rule petition, amend charter, temporary town manager.
Second.
By Sasha, second by Kate, further discussion? All in favor? Passed. Article 12, amend general bylaw.
I move to recommend Article 12, amend general bylaws, prohibition of cryptocurrency machines.
Second.
By Sasha, second by Haley, further discussion? All in favor? Are you?
Same.
Okay, so I think, did I do that, count that right? 601, okay. And that is all. That might be the quickest we've gone through them. We've already reviewed them three
When
more
you do them a
times.
couple times before.
Yeah. All right, so for speakers, yes, so it appears that select board's gonna take over too. I don't know that we, then we'll have the opportunity just to report, our position. Do we need to add any context to that? Like, do we, okay.
I think someone needs to be prepared to speak to it if there are questions and clarifications, don't you?
Are you volunteering?
No,
I'm just kidding.
It's.
I can if it's.
I'm hopeful that, I'm actually more than hopeful. I'm confident that Carl can explain it well, but it does have to do with school funding. So I think we should have someone.
Yeah.
Tom could write us a
Unless somebody else wants, I'm happy to do it.
script.
I'm not hearing anybody.
Should it be necessary?
It might not be necessary, but
Yeah.
I just don't want to all be looking at each other like.
Right.
I thought we were doing it, so I was prepped for it already. So.
Hopefully people got their questions out during that.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good explanation.
All right, Article 3,
So-
we are presenting. Am I hearing anybody interested in presenting Article 3?
I got it.
You'll be up there.
Yeah, all right.
Just keep it rolling. Yeah, I can do 3.
And then, so I guess we have 5.
I've historically done it. I don't mind doing it.
Thank you. And then the last one is 9.
Yeah, I'm happy to take 9.
Okay. Haley for 9. All right. It's nice and straightforward. Nice. Good. Moving on. I'm just trying to look at the time. Sometimes we take a break, but I feel like we're going to be through pretty quickly. Am I hearing anybody needs a minute?
Keep rolling.
All right. All right. So let's head up to policies. So just for some context, we got a little batch of updates.
Sorry,
on-
just
yeah.
procedurally skipped finance report. There's no finance report this evening. Right.
She acknowledged.
He didn't have a report, yeah. So, all right, back to policy. MASC periodically releases updates kind of off schedule for our updates. That's why these are kind of from all over the place. So starting with CA, this was one that we had and just had very minor wording changes. Actually, this was one that was on our regular cycle, not one that they had an update for. KBE, they suggested we add wording about raffles. This is a theme with this batch.
A lot of raffle
Yeah.
discussion.
That's the only
No
change.
raffles was such a taboo thing, but
Yeah.
evidently.
Sort of rules around raffles,
Yeah.
like a lot of.
Yeah, I was saying it's like gambling.
Right. Okay, so KI, it used to be like, it kind of read more like a procedure, like what would happen in each building. And so MASC came up with like an entirely new policy that's just really overarching guidance. Dr. Blake felt that made more sense for what we have going on for visiting schools.
So this is all
Totally replacing.
totally replacing. Do we need to run this? This like aligns with what we're doing, and
I'm sorry?
this aligns with our policy. I mean, this is our policy, I guess, but this aligns with our procedures, practice.
All right.
We talked about this last year in terms of, I don't know that that it would live here, but if you're dealing with a visitor that's like a one-off or someone, who's just coming in here or there versus we have, parent volunteers or other people who come into the building regularly, is there a place where we would consider training for those people on emergency drills, safety drills, protocols, those kinds of things, so that if people are in the building regularly, they would know how to participate appropriately? Whether it's, I think what we talked about last year was it could be as simple as you follow direction from the administrator or staff or something that sort of is like, and again, I don't know how we, police isn't the right word, but make sure that we would be tracking that. So like who would be, how do we determine who would be receiving that training and when and who wouldn't, I guess. So I know this is new news here, but.
It wouldn't be in the policy, it would be part of our protocols.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Nice if there was like a one pager or something, like if you're in an after school program or whatever it is,
Yep.
And even if it just says that, like it's kind of like an acknowledgement that you're part of goings. Okay. GBEBC, again, added some wording about raffles, and we did have one question to Tom. The last line, if there is a minimum dollar amount where it says all gifts and donations to the district must be accepted by a vote of the school committee.
That is $500 or more. Anything on $499 and under, the district can accept. Anything 500 and over, the school. It is DESI guidance.
So should we qualify that in here? All gifts and donations
I would.
greater than or equal to $500, right?
Otherwise, it's, yeah.
Right. So, all good? Everybody looking at it? I just added it. Okay.
How do these changes in policy get conveyed? I feel like I've asked this before. Conveyed to the staff and students if it's relevant to them. Just goes in the handbooks that they.
Once they're approved, I'll have a conversation at
A staff meeting. Okay.
I feel like obviously sometimes there are huge, changes in these. Yeah, but most of the time it's reword. They're so overarching. I mean, sometimes.
I know, but
yes,
like,
it's
I don't know, like, will
overarching.
raffles impact students fundraising? And there seems like there's just some new rules that like the students can't do it, but a parent or a booster organization could do it. So just making sure that we're following the policies and.
Change. Okay.
Also for parents to get communication like the class gifts. I mean, I've ever seen any communication related guidelines.
Is it not in the handbook?
The class gifts are more the high school, the senior classes donating X to the school.
These are like,
yeah, this is about
It's a classroom, like a holiday or end of the year. It's not in the it's not in the parent-teacher
You're
handbook,
right, like, I feel like I know it because
which you have to sign off
for
on.
us and teachers, I think when you're in the position that applies, you're supposed to self-monitor, but maybe be proactive with the community.
In the high school, at
But
least,
like even timely,
you have
like,
to sign off that you've read the parent-teacher
of,
handbook.
you know, the winter break, ahead of the end of the year. Because so then doesn't put any of our staff in a bad position.
I don't know. It's a good question.
We were just saying, like Kate was saying about this, is this in a teacher parent handbook somewhere? I guess there used to be a process where families had to sign that each year.
I can look at that. I don't know the answer to
That's the way the high school, you have to sign
Yeah, I mean, it's
that you've read it. You don't have to read it, but you're supposed to read it.
Yeah, that would be a good place to put it.
Families.
All right, JJE, added wording about raffles. ECAB is a new policy that was recommended by MASC. Kind of overarching, in line with what's going on already.
Do you speak?
Right, EFBA, also recommended by MASC regarding food accommodations. And then KBG is a new policy recommended by MASC. And this one, it at present, based on the number of students it refers to, it doesn't apply to us, but we thought it was helpful to have it. Why am I not seeing the text? Where did it go?
The EL learners, I mean, or no?
Yeah. Hold on, where did the text
yeah.
go?
There's copy of, and then there's
Oh.
KBG. The copy of that's blank, but KBG has the text in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, they smell duplicated.
Oh, I'm sorry. All good. That's why there's copy. Okay, so yeah, we thought this would be good because then if we ever do reach a threshold, like for, sorry, we do have a special education. It's for the English language learners, English Learner Parent Advisory Council that this would kind of remind us that we need it if we reach that threshold. That it's even a possibility.
So we don't have designated liaisons for these, should we?
Yes, we do, for special
For
education.
CPAC, we
Yeah.
should. I have not.
Do we for
That's
the?
on it
Was that
this year.
fateful meeting?
Do we for the other packs or just for that specific one?
That's the only
There's
one we
only.
have.
So we don't.
All right.
All right. That is all for this batch. Is there a motion to accept the updates as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Matt. Second by Jenny. All right, for further discussion, all in favor? Okay, passed. All right, new business. Okay, consent agenda. Move the Ipswich School Committee to approve the meeting minutes from September 4th, 2025.
I'm gonna abstain, I wasn't there.
Is that- Okay, Haley, second by Jenny, further discussion, all in favor? Okay, passed with one abstention. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Moved by Matt, second by Jen, all in favor? Okay, we are adjourned at 9:25. Thank you.